Over the past month or so, I have been sharing my experiences from my journals from when I was in high school. I've also been looking at my old emails from when I was a missionary. I've just been looking back. It's been fun. It's always good to look back and look at your own memories and see if what you thought was happening at the time actually is what your perception is, because I believe perceptions can be warped over time. I just find it kind of fun to look back. I don't know where I left off when I did share some of my other missionary experiences. I think they were just from the MTC. Sorry if I've already talked about this, but I'm just going to talk about my first week when I got to Argentina. I was serving as a missionary. I was first in the Mexico MTC for 6 weeks, and then I went to Buenos Aires in the North Mission there, which is the capital of Argentina. It's a very, very big city, and I had no idea what to expect. I've heard from a couple other people who had either siblings or they themselves had served there, but it had been a while before this time that I was going, and I had no idea what to expect, but I just went with the flow, and I was just really excited to get out of the MTC at that point. Everyone else from my district, they had left on their airplanes, and it just was me and my companion, and she left early one morning, and I was just left alone. Luckily, my plane was going to be leaving just a couple hours later, and there was a devotional that all the missionaries were going to, where I believe either the Young Women's or the Primary Presidency was speaking. And this was a really big devotional. I was able to sit in the back and sneak out to catch the bus to leave to the airport, and that's what I did. I just sat in the back, and I remember feeling like this is so weird to be alone, but I wasn't really alone. I was surrounded by so many people in that auditorium, and I thought their talks were really good. I remember taking lots of notes. I was very big into taking notes at this time. Just loved it. I filled out my whole journal. This was like a very big spiritual lessons that I was going to be learning. I just wanted to take everything in, and it was all in English, which made me very happy. And then I got to the airport, and I was with 7 other missionaries, but they were male missionaries that were also going to Buenos Aires, but different missions. Some were going to be specifically my mission, and others were going to be in like the east or south missions. And they were very excited too, but they were all in the same district, so they got to know each other very well. I didn't know them at all, but I just kind of went with the flow and asked them where they were from and got to know them. And we ended up getting Subway at the airport, in Mexico City's airport. Everyone else was like, this is our last of American food. In my mind, I was like, oh, I don't care about American food. I want to try something new. I want to try something different. I'm excited for Argentine food. When we were there, I remember we actually bumped into the primary or the Young Women's Presidency and their husbands. We took a picture with them. They were really excited for us, and I thought that was like so cool. It was like meeting someone famous, especially at that time. It's very exciting. And then we got on our airplane. I just remember that plane ride was very long. It was extremely long. I don't remember too much of it. I just remember it was very late at night, and I think it went over in the night, and that early that morning we got into Argentina, and some of the other missionaries met us there, and they took our stuff and put it in the car, and we had a carpool a couple of times, so one group one at a time. Well, they took all our stuff, and then we met at the temple there in Buenos Aires, and then our mission president picked us up in a really big van, and then we went to the mission house, where the mission president lived. Ate there. I think we had empanadas. I had never had them before, and we just talked with other missionaries, but I didn't really realize that those were going to be the people that we would be companions with. And there was another missionary there that was also a female, and she was from Brazil, and she spoke Spanish way better than I, because Portuguese and Spanish are very similar languages, so she was able to pick it up a lot faster. and she was just really nice, and we talk in our broken Spanish together because she did not speak English, I did not speak Portuguese, and we got along really well. We were the only two sister missionaries, everyone else was an elder. I remember we were trying to talk with each other, and for some reason I thought maybe we would be living together, maybe not companions, but living together. I was very confused at the whole situation. And then there were two other sisters that joined us, and like I said, I didn't realize that they were going to be companions with us, that's they were going to match us up. And we did some little mini interviews with the mission president, played some games, and then we loaded up and went on our way to our own separate areas with our new companion. My companion was from Mexico, and she did not speak any English, and I was really scared because I was like, is my Spanish going to be good enough? Are we going to get along? And she was just so sweet and so nice. We got along really well, and at first I was really quiet because I didn't know what to say. I couldn't say much at the time. We got in a kind of an Uber, I don't even remember what they called it, but it was like an Uber kind of car, and it picked us up and it took us to our new place. I remember looking out the window and thinking, this is so foreign to me. This is what I imagine maybe Europe looks like, or just a really old city in the US, but a very beautiful, elegant one. And it was a very long car ride, and I just was like, my eyes were like, oh my gosh, even though I was very tired. And then we got to our apartment, and there were two other sisters there, and we were going to be living with them. They were really nice, and I remember getting to the apartment and being like, this is so cool, this is so different. It was several stories high. I don't know, we were maybe on the 7th floor. I don't know how many floors there were, but it was pretty high up, and I thought that was really crazy to look out the window and feel so high up. That was that day, and I remember it feeling super humid. We went and got food, and the closest place that we could get food that was open at 8 p.m. because there's usually markets for food and stores that shut down pretty early in the day. And the only place that was open was like a gas station, and they had eggs that were out. They were not refrigerated. That looked really weird to me, but she reassured me that they were going to be fine. Eggs, I didn't really know what to get. I was just grabbing random foods, and I had no idea how much money I had, and we had to get Argentine money and out of an ATM. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just following. I was just going with the flow, and I was very exhausted. The rest of that week, I had read about it, and I said that it was really close to Christmas time, and the way that we were sharing the gospel at the time was we were giving out these little cards that said something about Christmas and Christ, and if you want to know more about Christ around this time, Savior's birth, come to one of our churches or meet with the missionaries. Here's our information and the church's website. And we're passing those out, and it says in there that we talked to over 100 people that week, and less than 20 had said like no thank you to me, and I had gotten to meet at least 20 people, and then finally someone said no, like I don't, but they said it really nicely is what I said. And everyone was very kind to me, and a lot of people wanted to hear more, so we're setting up a lot of appointments. Even though this was like a new area, I had no idea it was a new area at the time, and that my companion did not live here before, and that was very cool to me, but I didn't really know what was going on. I was just going with the flow. I was very excited, and I said that my Spanish was coming along really well, and that I really believed in the gift of tongues. And that was really funny because I look back and I'm like, I did not know very much Spanish at the time, but apparently I thought I knew a lot of Spanish. I said that I could say the church's name fully. I could say where I was from the United States, and that was a really big deal to me. I didn't realize that I had left MTC not being able to say basic things like that, and that the only sentence I could truly say was, I need to go to the bathroom in Spanish. That is crazy to me. That was all that I could say. That was the only sentence that I could say in Spanish at the time. And people were trying to teach me more of the accent. I remember there was like a couple of members that would walk around with us to help us find people or just walk around with us and keep us company. And there was this one boy, and he was trying to help me with the alphabet, try to get that down completely. And then he was also trying to help me with certain words and having like a sh sound to it. That way I was speaking more castellano is what they call it there. He was very adamant that I needed to have that accent and that I needed to sound like I was actually Argentine. He was very nice, and we walked around the streets with him and other people, like just like groups I felt like at a time. But I remember specifically talking with him. And then we had a Christmas party, which was very exciting. I didn't realize it was a big deal at the time because I was just thrown in during the Christmas time, but that was one of the only ward parties they had all year. And that's when everyone was there, and they were able to invite lots of their friends, especially the youth brought a lot of their friends with them. And I couldn't say much, but I said that I nodded my head a lot and tried to smile a lot. And I would just listen to what people were saying, trying to pick out small words that I did understand. And then along the way, I would just try to follow their body language to see if they're happy, what they are saying, and try to figure it out. And I said, I didn't understand much, but I feel like I understood a lot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I probably did it. But I had a really good time at the Christmas party and meeting new people. That was probably a good way for me to meet a lot of the members because some of them worked on Sundays or they weren't able to come every Sunday. That was a really good time to kind of meet everyone because everyone really made a big effort to show up. And it was a good opportunity to meet people that might be interested in the gospel. And then after that, I shared like a little last story, a little small story at the end where I was on the bus. The bus was, I had a bus for close to an hour, I think, to my area. And from where I lived to my area, I had a bus for about an hour. And on the bus, I would just study my Spanish. I would get out my little book and I would ask my companion, am I pronouncing things right? Am I saying things right? I was doing this, and this lady next to me tapped me on the shoulder and was like, where are you from? And I was like, I'm from the United States. And she's like, oh, like where in the United States? And she spoke a little bit of English too. And she was trying to use that and kind of speak to me. And she's like, how long have you been here? And I said, 5 days. And she was like, no way. Like, that's crazy that your Spanish is this good. She's like, did you study it when you were in school? And I said, well, I basically failed Spanish in school. And that's true. I think I did not pass Spanish 1, and you had to take Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. So I had to retake Spanish 1 in 8th grade. And then freshman year, I took Spanish 2 and got it out of the way and somehow passed. I think I just used Google Translate for a lot of my assignments. I learned nothing in high school. And that's what I kind of explained to her. And then I said, but I was in Mexico City learning for 6 weeks. And she's like, only 6 weeks? Like, that's crazy. And she's like, why are you here? And I said, oh, I'm just trying to share the gospel. I'm just trying to share my love for Jesus Christ. And she was like, oh, really? And she's like, what religion are you? And everything. And I ended up giving her a Book of Mormon and ended up like testifying of it. And I told her to read that first page of the introduction that explains a lot more of the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon. And she was very interested in that and very interested in how great my Spanish was. I don't know. Looking back, I'm like, I don't think it was that good. But other people kept reaffirming in my district. They were like, wow, like you learned a lot in the MTC. And everyone in my ward was like, wow, like usually new missionaries can't speak this well. And that's really funny to like look back on, because maybe that is a little bit more of a correct perspective because that was what I was writing at the time. Maybe my Spanish was a little bit better than other people were at a week or 2 weeks in the mission. And maybe that one lady had never heard anyone speak so well after just 6 weeks of studying a language. Maybe she's used to like a year or 2 years of speaking, like learning a language. That's kind of crazy to me because, like I said, I look back and I'm like, I knew nothing. But I was not shy. That is one thing. I just kept my mouth open and I just kept smiling and reading body language. And I was just trying my best. I kept saying that, like, I'm just trying my best. I'm studying so hard And when I look back, that is truly what I was doing. I was studying every minute I had to try to get the language down, and I had a companion who really wanted to help me because that was our only way of communicating was through Spanish. I don't know, that was really cool. And I'll probably read next week's and kind of just give a synopsis on that. I don't have a lot of pictures of me in Argentina because I had only a little camera and I didn't want to use up all the memory, and I didn't know how everything worked, and I didn't know all the stores and where you could get more memory. I only took sparingly pictures while I was there, especially at the beginning. And that is probably why you'll see maybe 1 or 2 pictures from this time period of that first week or the last week in the MTC. But that is it for the first week in Argentina.